moving into a little bit of detail on cellular respiration. So this video will cover all of the important nitty-gritty details of respiration. So, glycolysis. Remember, this is the precursor to respiration that just happens before it, and respiration does have to have glycolysis, but it's not considered the first step of cellular respiration. In glycolysis, 2 ATP molecules are used to split a glucose, which is 6 carbons, C6, into 2 3-carbon molecules. So you can see in your picture here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 glucose split into 2 3-carbon molecules. 1, 2, 3 carbons there. Started with 6, broke it into 2 3-carbons. We make NADH. So I want to point this word out to you. When we were talking about photosynthesis, I made a point to tell you, remember, photosynthesis has the P in it. Well, this is why. NADH is found in cellular respiration and in the mitochondria. It is a slightly different molecule, so it has a slightly different name. But NADH is the same as NADPH. It's an energy storage molecule. In their function, they are the same. So NADH is made from NAD plus during this step of glycolysis. The reactions altogether, it's a whole series of reactions. The goal is to make pyruvate or pyruvic acid, which are 3-carbon molecules, which you see here at the bottom. So it looks like, well, they just took a phosphate off. There are a few more reactions in there before we get to pyruvate, because there are some other things around these 3 carbons that are important. But I want you to remember glucose to pyruvate. That's glycolysis in a little teeny nutshell. As a result of glycolysis, 2 ATP molecules are formed. The Krebs cycle, which is also the TCA or the citric acid cycle, is when we take pyruvate from glycolysis. So the glycolysis has happened in the cytoplasm of the cell, and it shipped its pyruvate into the mitochondria. And the first step of the Krebs is to break down pyruvate. As a result, ATP is produced. And I want you to add, as kind of bullet point number 5 under the Krebs cycle, that NADH and FADH2. So you'll see both of those things over here in your picture. I want you to add that they are created. Both of those are electron carriers, just like ATP. That means they have energy stored up in those molecules. The thing with ATP is it's usually made and used instantly because that last phosphate has so much energy in it. So we usually put energy inside of other molecules like NADH and FADH2 because they're a little more stable. They're not ready to get rid of their energy. They're not crazy hyper like kids on Halloween. So they're holding their energy in their little basket to be used later on. So I want you to add that both of those molecules are produced by the Krebs cycle. Carbon dioxide is a waste product of the Krebs cycle, just like in the reactions of photosynthesis, oxygen was a waste product. Carbon dioxide is the waste here. And we take all of the energy made in the Krebs cycle and transfer it into the last step, or the second step of cellular respiration, called the ETC. The ETC is a process of removing electrons. So in this animation here in the picture, you can see that NADH, which was your little electron carrier, ships hydrogens across the membrane, and we have 2 electrons traveling along. We're not going to go through all of these different individual steps, but I want you to see what's happening. It's a constant pumping of hydrogens, pumping of H pluses across that membrane, and we're using a little bit of energy along and along to generate ATP. So we have ADP at the bottom. We're using these H's to create that high energy bond of ATP. And this molecule, this green one right here, it's labeling it, says ATP synthase. And so that's an enzyme that, along with all these others, creates and speeds up the reaction of ADP to ATP. As a result of this electron transport chain, water is a waste product. So you'll see that appear at the bottom of the animation. Water is a waste product in this. So I told you that the parts of the mitochondria were important. Here's where you can really see why it's important. So this side, the bottom side of the mitochondria, or the animation here, would be the matrix of the mitochondria. This would be a space between the inner and the outer membrane. You can see that the H's build up at the top of the animation. That's important. That space between the inner and the outer membrane is so small that those H's can build up in order to power ATP synthase. If that space was really large, building that concentration gradient would take a lot more energy, and powering ATP synthase would almost not be worth it. So the parts of the mitochondria are crucial to the function of the mitochondria. All right, so wrapping it all up, the products of cellular respiration and glycolysis are carbon dioxide, CO2, water, and as many as 38 ATP molecules for 1 molecule of glucose. And that's broken down there for you. 2 from glycolysis, 2 from the Krebs cycle, and up to 34 from the electron transport chain. So you're really getting most of your energy at the final step of cellular respiration.